Alright guys, so as you can see, this is the onion. It's about 3 weeks to a month off from the time to be ready to harvest. You know, to let you know something here, it's a teachable moment, right? So, you know in the scriptures where it talks about the wheat and the tares growing together, right? Now, this right here will be considered in terms of the scriptures, right? This will be considered a tare, right? And you see how it looks similar to the plant of a onion plant, right? Luckily, the roots are still there on here on the onion, so I can replant this back in. Similar to what they'll call transplant, how you can transplant certain vegetable fruits. You can transplant them if they have the root still without damaging them. You can plant it back in the ground in its proper place, as you can see here. Let me bring the camera close. You see there, the other ones are growing. But like I said, this right here manipulates. It looks just like it. And that's why the scripture says that you let them grow together until the time of harvest, right? It looks similar. Almost you'll think, hey, but this grew a little faster because what it was doing was stealing the nutrients from the soil from this plant, this onion, and it was taking all the nutrients and it was growing pretty fast, considering that all the rain that we have gotten and that's some good soil there and it's staying pretty moist and fertile. But this looks just like it, but you don't pull it because when I pulled this, just for a teachable moment, I pulled this to show you. When I pulled this, it pulled this up right with it. All right? Like I said, I'm going to transplant this back in there because the roots are still in there. It's still a healthy onion. And, yeah. But just for a teachable moment. There's ways you can pull it without pulling up both, but because it's so close together, it grew literally right on top of it. All right?
Just pause the video. Pause.
Yeah.
All right. So as I said earlier, I'm going to plant this back. A key way to know that onions are ready to harvest is when you press the top of it, even this part here and even this part here. If it's hard, it's not ready to be harvested yet. But if it's soft anywhere, then it's ready, right? You know, onions usually gather layers. Another key thing is that don't expect to have a real huge onion when it's time to harvest. It may just get a little bit bigger than this, just about the size of a golf ball, right? A little bit bigger than the size of a golf ball. Considering that when you go to the store, you sometimes see these big onions, it's because some of those are GMO, right? Genetically modified. That's why you don't see it. They won't be as big as you thought they would. Now, you could have bigger, depending on how good your soil is, depending on how much pH is in the soil and certain things that you need in the soil to have a healthy growth. But for this instance, like I said, this is about a month, three weeks to a month off of being time to be harvested, all right? We are getting ready to conclude the rest of this month in July. Usually August, September, you get the last bit of the heat before the cool frost comes in, all right? So I'm going to transplant this back, or I don't know, Kayla, she wants to take a picture with it first. All right, time to transplant this back in there. Like I said, the soil is still rich, good soil there. As you can see, the other ones are right here. They'll be ready just about the same amount of time, all right? They ain't got to put too much farther down. They come up to show themselves to say, I'm almost ready, just like carrots. But you got a little more time to go, little fella, so you stay in there until, like I said, you can smell how strong the onions are. It smells pretty good. Keep that around there until it's time. All right, as you can see, there's another one right here. I can probably pull this. It won't be too much damage. It's further away from the other one. Like I said, it's another look-alike.
Look at that, yeah.
Right? And you know the scripture says that when he planted, you know what you planted, and then overnight the enemy tears them of the wheat. That's what the similar is. Like, I know what I planted. So Kayla asked the question. She said, how do I know what is actual the vegetable or the fruit versus a tare, right, or weeds? And you will know because you know what you planted. You know what you put in the garden. It's just like you know what you tell your children. You know the way you instructed them, and then they come home and either they're at school or they may be out about, and you ask them, where did they get this from. You know you didn't plant them in. You didn't plant that in them. You didn't tell them these things. So same way with gardening. That's why the scriptures always talk about parables and using agriculture, harvesting, gardening.
Because it was our culture, our customs.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yep. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna make our way to check out these cucumbers. We have a few of them that's probably ready to harvest. Meanwhile, I can check on the carrots because the carrots might be about ready. Alright. So before you do that, I'm gonna show something real quick. Come over here. So a lot of people probably look at this like, man, those weeds. Consider it, it's a wild native plant, right? With wild native plants, it's almost like a wild native, it's called a wild native lettuce. You can clean these real good, boil them, and you can actually eat them. It's not only is it a wild native plant, but it's also a herb, right? A certain kind of herb. With that being said, you can use it for medicinal, for like
This is what it looks like.
medicines and certain wild. You'll know what you can have in your garden that's not all weeds. You know, even though people consider them as weeds, you got to learn what is natural things that you can eat, that you can clean, and you don't be standing around like, I'm hungry, I don't know what to eat. And you can have something similar to this, and you can tell by his seeds on top of it here. You see, these are little seeds. And you can use that to plant more, and you can actually grow them properly. So it's wild native, they'll grow like this, just like dandelions. The same way you can use those as well. You see?
We're trying to zoom in.
Like I said, don't cut these things down right away. You harvest them and you do what you can do with them.